Now, if I were to ask you what powerful desktop DAC you know, what would you tell me? 1 watt, 1300 milliwatts, 2000 milliwatts, 14,000 milliwatt. What? Welcome back, audiophiles. It's me, your boy Joe, back again with another video, and this time we'll be looking at items from FangSound. Now, FangSound is the brand which is behind these two powerful equipment which can run pretty much absolutely anything you could possibly think of, and that's why we're going to be looking at them in this particular review with this dongle DAC as well as this super high power desktop DAC. A quick disclaimer is that both the FangSound Prometheus, that is this dongle DAC, and the FangSound Silenos, that is this desktop DAC, is given to me by the Audio Geek Group, so a huge shout out to them. Thank you so much for letting me review these units. As usual, all thoughts and opinions are my own and no biases whatsoever. So the FangSound Prometheus is available for $429 US, and the FangSound Silenos is available for $459 US. With all that out of the way, let's begin. So this is going to be a two-part video. First is, of course, the Prometheus, and the other one is going to be the Silenos. Timestamps will be down at the video below, so you can check out whichever one you want to. So unboxing wise, is nothing pretty major out here. This is the box for the FangSound Prometheus. As you can see that it's not much of a design, it's just having a picture of the Prometheus in the box. And if you open it, we had the Prometheus down in there, we have the manual behind it, and we have the wire that I'm using for the Prometheus. This wire is a pretty good braided wire. I like the quality of the wire, it's making sense to me. So let's have a close-up at the Prometheus. As you can see, the shell is really good. It is having that metallic finish to it. And for those of you who could read Greek, that is actually Prometheus written in Greek. So that's pretty cool. And we also have these kind of vents that's going around in the sides. And we have the USB-C in the back, another set of vents. And then finally, we have 4.4 and 3.5. And in the back side, we have the FangSound logo. So nothing much in there, very clean design, very compact as well. It has a very good heft to it. Build quality is amazing. As I said, in terms of the specs, the output power is 1 watt, that is 1000 milliwatt at 32 ohms, with a dynamic range of 129 dB, and the THD is 0.0004, which is running at 4 VRMS for this particular thing, but the output voltage is 6 VRMS. In comparison, in other dongles, we barely get 2.5 or 3 VRMS with 700 milliwatts. This thing is cranking 1000 milliwatts as it is with the dongle DAC output. So that is just crazy to think about these kind of numbers. In terms of the DAC chip, this thing is running the ESS series, I believe. This one is running the ES9039 Pro chip, which is pretty good in terms of overall output. I would say that ESS is more of the clean output formats, and that is pretty true for the Prometheus, as we will check in the sound impressions. Build is absolutely amazing, is very sturdy, very strong, and very compact as well. Look at the compactness of this thing. This thing can be just put inside a little shirt pocket, and you're good to go with. Now, one thing to note is that there's no app or anything of such to control the output that is in here. This thing is simple control. It is plug and play. The settings of the DAC is, of course, the internal settings that you set. There's no separate volume control, so you can see that there's no independent volume control in here. It does take the volume control of your laptop or your Mac that you're using, which we'll get to in a minute. But overall, it's a very easy plug and play, simplest of DACs that you can imagine. So enough said about the design aspects of it. Let's get into some sound impressions of the Prometheus. So getting to the sound impressions, like I usually do with the DACs, I'm not going to be telling how the sound is. I'm going to be telling how the DAC makes the IEMs different in its particular signature. So to begin with, we're looking at The Champion, which is an awesome song. I have put it in my playlist. As usual, you could check out all the different songs that I'm listening to with the reviews down in the form of an Apple curated playlist that I'll be leaving you in the description below. So you can listen to the songs that I'm listening to. So first and foremost, I'm using the Symphonium Giant. This is going to be one of my most demanding IEMs in terms of power requirement, and that is being connected to the FangSound, which is connected to my laptop. And in terms of power output, let's just say the amount of headroom in the Giant is just crazy. So I am able to run Giant really well with just around like 40% of the volume in this FangSound. So that is crazy. In comparison with other dongle DACs, when I used that with the Symphonium Giant, I had to crank that up to like, let's say 70% or 80% to have the volume required for Giant to perform its best. And this is just having 40% of the volume. So imagine the amount of headroom that is available for the dynamic range of the Giant. So that's just amazing. It's really good. And I do feel that the bass impact is actually much more cleaner when you're using the FangSound, because this one is, after all, the ESS chip we're talking about. It feels more clean. It feels really good. If you're not listening to the review of the Symphonium Giant, do check it out in there. I'll leave a card over there, and I hope it's there, or is it there? But overall, in short summary, I would say the Giant is more of an immersion oriented IEM, and that is being really handled well with the FangSound Prometheus. It's really good. It's giving that bass impact that we expect. The bass is really clean. It's handling mids is also really good. It's not going to color anything in the treble as well. I call this really transparent, so it inherits most of the IEM's properties, but in the bass region, it makes the bass cleaner. So it's not going to increase thump or anything, but it makes the bass much more cleaner, and that is really good in terms of the Giant, because the Giant is having a very big bass, albeit a tad on the boom side, but then it's really good bass, and that is handled really well with the Prometheus. So I call this a really good synergy when you're using the Symphonium Giant with the Prometheus, given that it can handle this particular load really easily. I have also tried this with the Monarch Mark II. The same kind of effort can be said to the Monarch Mark II. It is a highly demanding set. It needs really powerful sources to shine. And with this, I was able to run the Mark II at just under 30 to 40% volume again. So Mark II ran really well, and its bass quality was also really good. It's having that, Mark II style thumping bass, but that cleanliness can be seen. It gives you a level of refinement over the bass sense, but nothing in the mid or in the treble, but in the bass region, it gives that extra sense of cleanliness, I would call it. So in order to put this particular dongle DAC to its test, I have now connected the Ananda Stealth to the dongle DAC to see how well it can drive this really demanding one. So this one is running with the Monk Cable Plus. If you recall, the Monk Cable Plus actually gives even more impedance to the Ananda Stealth, so you really need high power sets to drive this thing to its fullest extent. So this connected to the Prometheus, I am now running the Prometheus at 60% on its volume. So that is amazing to be able to run a high power headphone, that to planar and being the Ananda Stealth of all things, at such a comfortable volume at 60% with enough headroom is amazing on the Prometheus. And in terms of output, I would say the Ananda's output is pretty good. It's really good. I'd say that it's not affecting much in all the other frequencies, but with the Ananda, I feel like the treble is slightly uplifted when you are using, at least for the Ananda with the Prometheus. I feel like places where I used to be comfortable with the treble of the Ananda being, a little bit on the treble side, it's not the brightest of headphones or anything, but it does have its sense of details. I feel like when I'm listening with the Prometheus with the Ananda, I felt the treble a little bit extra. It's not hurting me or anything, but it's something I noticed, like, oh, there's a little bit extra treble in here. So that is something going for it. Once again, the bass was amazing. The soundstage of Ananda being, the Ananda, it's really good. I felt all of it is synergizing well, except for the fact that the treble is slightly uplifted. That's the only change. But for the fact that this high power headphone is running so easily with the Prometheus is just mind blowing. Last but not least, I am trying the FlipEars Legion. Now this one is not a very high power demanding set, but if you use high power sets, you get the most out of the BCD that is inside the Legion. And this thing on the Prometheus is running at just 20%. So it's like 3 or 4 knob turns and that's it. I have the Legion at its full volume, and the BCD just sings when you use the Prometheus with the Legion anymore, and the Legion is getting too loud for me. So this Prometheus is power packed. And in terms of bass quality, like I said, the bass quality is amazing. I feel the bass pump with the Legion. If you have missed the Legion review, do check it out at the card over there. It's a really good bass thumping set, which is excellent for bass heads. And in here, I would see that the Prometheus is running the Legion to its extent of 100% potential, if not 120% potential. The only issue is that it's just so power sensitive that I'm at like only 4 points on the Mac when I'm running the Legion, and it is really loud for me. So I have to like balance it between 4 and 3, which is really low to be fiddling with the dongle DAC at just that much volume. So it's having too much volume in its hands. Keep in mind, if you are going to be using the Prometheus, do use it with IEMs that really require the power. If heaven forbid you use this Prometheus on any kind of IEMs super sensitive or IEMs which just runs totally fine with standard power, you might have a chance of frying your IEMs, so don't let them cook. So what are my overall impressions for the FangSound Prometheus? Well, this one is an excellent DAC with a very good build and very good power output. The only thing I would say that it is too much power. So there is such thing as too much power when you're using it for some of the IEMs. But for IEMs which do require the power, and if you're running this at, let's say, on its 40-50%, you're running it on its really good potential, and it can power up pretty much anything you throw at it. Like I said, if you are using this for sensitive IEMs, please don't. That'll just cook your IEMs if you're just running out even 1% of its particular power source. In terms of other aesthetics, let's say the warmth, it does run on a pretty warm level once you connect it in. So don't fret over that. It does get a little bit warm once you're using it and connecting it. I would think that this is more useful to connect to laptops rather than phones, because the amount of power draw is extensively high on this. Heaven forbid you connect this to a phone, I would think that you would fry the phone immediately in its power battery usage. So that is a point to note out. But other than that, super DAC, in terms of rating, I would easily give this a 4.5 out of 5, simply because this is not to be used with regular earphones, because the volume usage is really finicky once you're into this kind of power, and there's no high gain low gain switch of any kind because it's just on its full power. So the volume control is really finicky once you're using regular earphones. So if it's for high power gear, this thing is a 5 out of 5. But if you're using it for low power gear, it really starts to get into your nerves when you're trying to tweak the volume between 1 or 2. So that's a bit of a bummer on that. But other than that, really good dongle DAC to use on a plug and play basis for high power gear. Alright, so it's now time to address the literal elephant in the room, and that is the FangSound Silenos. Now, this is a desktop all-in-one headphone amp. It's also a preamp, and you could also just use it in its DAC format if you wish to. And this one is costing at $460, which is really surprising that the difference between this and the Prometheus is like $30 or something. So that's really crazy that the Silenos can be affordable at this particular price point. And as I said, the output is 14 watts on 32 ohms with a signal to noise ratio as 160B, which is pretty good. And its output, you can use XLR, 3.5, 4.4, as well as a 6.5 quarter inch. So you don't need an adapter when you're running this bad boy. Unboxing wise, pretty much nothing. It has really good foam packaging so you could transport, and inside was the DAC and all the different wires that you need. Let's have a close-up on the DAC. This thing is heavier than you think. When I am holding it, I am now using a bit of a hefty strength to hold this in one hand, but as you can see, the build quality, it's really good. It has this kind of grill finishing in the sides. This grill is actually seen from the side as well, so it's good for airflow. And we have Silenos written in Greek in the bottom in here. So here's a close-up. As you can see, Silenos is written in there. For those of you who could read Greek, it's pretty much self-explanatory. It's saying Silenos. And these are the grills in the side, so you could see it in here. And if you do notice, you can see some of the airflow that will go through in and out through the front and the side. And here's the front. So here's the front. We are starting with the XLR input, and then this one is the 4.4, and then this one is the indicator. Here's a wonderful volume knob, and this one in this side is the 3.5, and this one is the DAC indicator switch, and then finally we have the 6.35 quarter inch adapter in this. So everything is packed up to the brim on the front. In the back, we're having a little bit of limited outputs and inputs. In the back, we are having the USB input for the DAC. So you can see this is the USB input. We have high gain and low gain. So there's a switch for the high gain, low gain. The on off is here to turn on and off the DAC itself. This is the preamp output I was telling you about. And then finally, we have dual XLR outputs for the decoded out. That is, if you're going to be using this in the R2R fashion that it is, this is an R2R DAC, of course, and you could use the XLR outputs. So pretty much of a limited amount of outputs. If you are going to use RCA or something, you're going to have to use a bunch of connectors and different converters to get what you need. But hey, if you want to use this in an all-in-one format that it is, without the stack form, you're having everything that you need in the front side. So you have XLR, you have 3.5 quarter inch, everything that you need on hand. And as you notice, the backside is having a direct connection. So there is an inbuilt transformer in here. You don't have to use those other kind of external bulky cables and such. This is a direct input even for the 100 voltage or the 240 volts. So it can work internationally. So enough said and enough trying to work with this like a dumbbell. Time to connect this bad boy in and work on the sound impression. Alright, so I have my Silenos connected to my computer via the USB-C, so you can see it's here, and we have the indicator lights showing that it's on, and the DAC function is also on, and here is the volume knob. I'm now going to be connecting the different IEMs that I've tried for the Prometheus, connected to the Silenos, and show you the comparison between both of them. Let's go. So starting out with the Monarch Mark II, I have it connected to the FangSound Silenos, and let's just say there is such thing as too much power. So the FangSound Silenos actually has the volume which is controllable in the pot, as well as the internal volume of my laptop. So I could control both volumes. It's not like, set to max on the laptop. You could actually change it in comparison with some other DACs which will disable the volume on the laptop and just keep it on full power, and you could only change it in the volume control of the DAC itself. So there's a bit of a difference in there. It's not a plus or a minus, it's just a feature. And in that sense, I'm running it on low gain. Okay, so heaven forbid I put it to high gain, this thing will fry to a crisp. And this one, I could say that I am using my laptop at its like 70-ish, 80-ish% volume. And then I am using this onto like, I would not call it like 20 degrees. 15 degrees or something, and that's already loud enough for this Monarch to function. Plenty of power. It can run this thing like a breeze, but I would say even too much for even the Monarch to handle, as this thing, I would say it's more suited for headphones. If you want to use this for IEMs, then your IEM must be a power hogger. Only then it can even withstand the force of the Silenos. In terms of the output, I would say that the output is once again on the transparent side. It has that little bit of an R2R organic flavor. I felt that little slight warm-ish flavor of the R2R. That's really good. And in terms of pure raw output, it's immense. So we don't even need to talk about headroom when you have this much volume output in potential. So Monarch was running like a breeze, really good, clean output. So as for the Symphonium Giant, when I'm using that with the Silenos, you could see that the volume is set at 90 degrees. So I could call it like 90 degrees from the bottom. So it was able to crank it up to that much before it gets too loud for me. I even did some light fine tuning with the Mac level volume control. So really good. Now, in terms of the Symphonium Giant, I would say that it's really good in the soundstage. Once again, Giant is known for a soundstage, and I feel like the Silenos is uplifting that soundstage to a greater extent. So plenty of headroom again. The bass is thumpy, the bass is very clean, the bass dynamics is really good. I don't think it's doing any more changes on the bass as to what it is already is. Highly transparent in that regard. I don't feel like there's any extra characteristic added other than the fact that the soundstage feels more wider. So that's also really nice. And like I said, in terms of the output power, there's already way too much head as it is. So moving on to the Hifiman Ananda Stealth series. This one is running effortlessly on the Silenos. So in terms of volume, I actually increased the volume on the Mac level to almost like close to 90-ish% for the fine tuning. And I put the Silenos at around like the 10 o'clock-ish position. So it's like from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, in between that. And with that itself, runs perfectly fine. So the total dynamic range is present. There's a lot of headroom, and it's having its bass qualities and it's really good soundstage. So all of that is working perfectly well with the Ananda. One thing I would do like to mention is that comparing this and the Prometheus kind of uplifted the treble to the fact that I felt like, okay, there's a little bit of an extra treble, but that was not present in the Silenos. It was actually really good. It feels so much organic because of that R2R architecture, and I feel like that is really helping the Ananda to shine much more better. I feel like I could crank this to the good volume it is instead of blowing my ears apart, but I was able to crank it up to that 10 o'clock level volume and listen to the extent that I wish to listen to. I really felt comfortable listening to the Ananda. It really felt good. The bass is clean. The mids are also clean. It really felt nice, and it synergizes well with the Ananda and the Silenos put together. So that's awesome. For the kicks and giggles, I have also tried connecting the Legion to the Silenos, and as you could see, I put it on like 10 degrees. So on 10 degrees with reduction of the Mac volume to around like 50%, this thing is already too loud. So that is how much volume you're able to get cranked up from the Silenos, and I would say essentially the Silenos is too much for the Legion to handle. This is not something that you would wish to put on normal earphones to get the power output that you want. So what are my overall thoughts and opinions on the Silenos? Well, first and foremost, I would say that if you want an all-in-one DAC amp setup, which is minimalistic, fits right in, and can power literally any of your devices that you could even possibly imagine, then the Silenos is for you. It can run everything really well, high power, very clean, and with the setup that it has, if you are the kind of person who uses a USB output and want to use it for all of your different headphones or high power IEMs with the different outputs that you require, then the Silenos is just plain perfect for that. If you are into the mood of trying to use it in a stack output, and if you're having RCA connections, if you're having optical connections, and if you have those kind of outputs that you need different options for, then I would think that the Silenos doesn't have that particular option that's catering to what you need. You would probably only work with the USB input, and then if you're using XLR, well and good, you can use the XLR output and then get it to your stack. But if you're using the RCA output, then you need a couple of converters, and that's going to get things a bit finicky. That's the only issue that I would see for the Silenos, that its selection of outputs is well limited. But if you are in that audience who has that outputs that you do need from the Silenos, then you're good to go. And there is such a thing as too much power. So if you're using it for regular earphones, you have a high chance of frying them. And all of the testing that I've done is with the low gain. I really don't have anything to test with high gain, and I don't want to risk the fact of burning any of my IEMs in the process. So other than that, it's really good. It is very good for headphones which demand the power. So in terms of rating, I would say for what it's worth and for the kind of headphones that you require for it, it is an easy 5 out of 5 for those kind of high power headphones. But if you're having regular gear, then you really don't need to look into the Silenos or the Prometheus for that matter, and you probably need to look for lower power devices. But with all that said, Silenos is an awesome 5 out of 5 for me, and the Prometheus, like I said, is just a 4.5 out of 5, just for the fact that in terms of the volume settings, I cannot get what I need, and it doesn't have app control or anything of the sort. So other than that, this is a review for the Prometheus and Silenos. Do let me know what you think about these two DACs down in the comments below. Are you using this with your high-powered devices? What kind of devices are you using this with? Do let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, if you do like my videos, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like my videos, give me a thumbs down. I don't know. Until then, this is Joe, and I would see you in the next review. Peace.